in Southern California, so sunshine, skateboards, all that kind of good stuff. Growing up, I did a lot of sports. My parents, they listened to a lot of music when I was a kid. So my mom listened to a lot of country. My dad listened to a lot of R&B and hip hop. And so that seeped in, and I didn't really realize until I got to college how much I really liked that kind of music. I got into guitar when I was in middle school. It was Guitar Hero, that video game that came out back in the 2000s that got me into it. So remember Guitar Hero 3 had Slash on the cover, and I was like, oh, he's got hair like mine. And my mom would always be like, oh, I'm better than you, and we'd have little battles, and eventually I just was like, hey, I want to do this for real, and I pulled my dad's old guitar down from the shed, and I stuck with it. My mom was like, okay, if you play this, because I think it was like October, and my mom was like, okay, if you do this until Christmas, like I'll get one for you, and an electric guitar, because that's what I wanted. So I was like, you promise? And she was like, yes. So I stuck with it, and I just remember I was 12 at the time, and this was a full body acoustic, so it was just huge. And I just, with my little arms, was just trying to hold it and trying to just play little one string riffs and stuff like that. So I just went from there. I stuck with it, and my mom held up her end of the bargain and got me it was an Epiphone Les Paul Sunburst. I got it somewhere in here. I don't know where it is. One of these guys behind me, but still play it. And then I just kind of fell in love and went from there. So.
That I can't stand your elevation, the adrenaline and elation from breathing next to you.
Beginning, it was a lot of rock guitar players. So Jimi Hendrix, I got a poster right over there. He's a big one. He was. I have a vivid memory of my dad and I driving through the desert. And you know how you get the water mirages when it's really hot on the road? And we were going, and the Foxy Lady started, because he always loved that song. And the guitar feedback's going, and the intro kicks in, and then you kick into the riff. And I just remember, I don't even know how old I was. I might have been around like 5 years old or something like that. But that is forever seared into my mind. Just that feeling, that energy, and that just kind of laid the groundwork for then when I got into music myself and kind of was listening independently. I had a little iPod and all that kind of stuff. I was into Guns N' Roses, Slash, like I said, with Guitar Hero was super, super big. And then like blues and stuff like that, kind of the Jimi Hendrix direction. And then I got into the more heavy kind of stuff like Metallica and Megadeth and the more guitar centric. And then a lot of the stuff I was writing in high school was a lot of hard rock and metal. School was huge for that, just kind of exposing me to things. And that's why I went. I just wanted to be able to write better songs. And I decided that, well, what better way to learn how to write a better song than learning a bunch of songs? And I just wanted to do music full time, and I wanted to play guitar full time. So I just decided I can play guitar, I can write better songs. Music school is the way for me to go.
Your thoughts, they leave me breathless, in total fixation of everything you do.
Literally, there's so much to know. Like, before you go to school, you don't know how much you don't know. You have no idea, like, the vast just sea of knowledge that these teachers have. And so music school for me was just, it really just instilled confidence in me. I think that my bachelor's degree was huge for me coming to confidence stylistically, but like my whole goal of going to music school was I wanted to be able to write better songs. And in school, I learned about harmony. I learned how to arrange for, big band, all that kind of stuff. Learned all this theory, learned about all these theoretical terms and usages and devices and little tips and tricks. And that's what I kind of fall back upon. And all the members in my band out here in California, they all, if not graduated, are in the process of graduating. So I can communicate with them in a way where we can get to the root of the problem and we can get to my vision faster. So
at your elevation,
after school, I was still playing in other bands, and I kind of had to be real and truthful with myself and say that, do I want to do this? And I had to remember why I wanted to go to music school, and that was to write songs. So I locked myself in my house, my room, for a few months, wrote a bunch of songs. Not all of them are the greatest, but I had to flesh them out, had to get the stuff going. But once I did, I was like, okay, I got these 4, 5, 6 songs, and I just started chopping, and somehow, I don't even know, maybe it was like a Google search, Facebook, somehow, some way, I found Tony and sent him the songs. And he listened to them. I was like, hey, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm trying to start out. I would love it if you could check these out. And he was kind enough to sit down and listen to them. And then we ended up talking on the phone. And next thing I know it, I'm in Nashville recording. And after that, my song's on the radio and Heartbreak. And now I'm, promoting Elevation. And so Elevation started. I love Led Zeppelin. Like Led Zeppelin probably for me is like top 5 bands for sure. Maybe one, maybe two. Depends on the day of the week. But the thing I love about them is how they love to go places and write. And so when I when I got through Heartbreak and kind of got back from Nashville and was deciding, okay, I need to write another batch of songs, I was like, oh, this is my chance. Like I can go places and write. And some days I go to the beach, but this time in particular, I was like, oh, I want to go up in the mountains. And so I go drive up and I'm there for probably like 2 or 3 hours and nothing's really hitting me. I'm kind of finishing up some loose ends. I'm working on a lyric to another song and trying to figure out a chord progression. And as I'm driving down, like the signs, it had the elevation of the mountain, like the, not a real mountain, but the hill, that I'm on. And it was like, I was like, oh, that's a cool, I like that word, elevation. And I was talking, to this girl at the time and, I was super kind of into her and stuff like that. And I was kind of thinking like, oh, like I like the idea of vertigo, and of breathlessness. And so I was like, yeah, I kind of feel like that when I'm with her. So kind of one thing led to another and I was like, elevation. And I was like, oh, I can't stand your elevation. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. So I'm singing, I'm just trying to remember it. I'm going home and I'm like just singing this chorus in my head over and over again because it's like, I can't forget it. Probably should have pulled out my phone and just voice memoed it, but wasn't really thinking, was so wrapped up in just this creative process. So I rush home and I forgot it. And I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me right now. Like I have all these words. I have like half the song written out and I didn't obviously I was driving, so I couldn't I couldn't play any chords. So I had like no context. I was like, what key was it in? And then, so I'm like sitting down and I'm trying to remember it and I kind of piece something together and then I come up with the harmonic progression. I'm like, okay, I like this. And then I write another melody for it. And I don't even know if it might have been the same melody. It might be a different melody. It might be kind of like a mix. But I was, I was like, actually, this is way better. Whatever it is, even if it was the same thing, it just, in my mind, it felt better. And so I go home and I kind of knock it out that evening and then I always like to come back the next day and I'll have like a big writing session, but it's it's something that for me just kind of appears and then kind of regresses. So I'm always kind of tapping at it. I'm always trying to poke the bear, like, okay, are we gonna write today? Muse, are you gonna help me out with something? Some little extra juice today? And sometimes it's like, yeah, here's all this stuff, and it's like, oh man, I gotta write all day long because this is hitting me and this is hitting me. Other times it's like, nah, sorry, we're not gonna help you out today. So thankfully that day driving down from the mountains, it hit me. So went home, looked over it the next day, made a few little adjustments and changes, and then sent it off to Tony and Plateau Music, and that's the one that he ended up picking. Yes, Elevation has been released. You can catch it on Spotify, on Apple Music, on iTunes, on YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. I have to go back out to Nashville and record another little leg of the album. So I've been with, all the, the promotion and Heartbreak and now the kind of success of Elevation. My schedule's kind of gotten a little kind of crazy. I got gigs and I got all sorts of things and trying to get a nice, week, 2-week chunk to go fly out to Nashville to make sure all the session guys that like to play on my stuff are there, to make sure that the label, everything's kind of good to go. It's kind of becoming more and more difficult the more this process kind of grows and becomes just more solidified and just more present in my life, so my goal is to have it out the end of this year, if not, the latest, I think, early next year. But for me, I'm just happy that I get to do this and that I know it's going to come out because I'm just excited for it. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening, to checking my songs out, to coming to the gigs. Like, I can't do it without you guys. So just thank you guys so much.